My son disappeared the night before my wedding. The white dress hung on the closet door, a vision of lace and promise. But as midnight approached, all I could focus on was the empty bed in the room across the hall. My 14-year-old son, Tyler, was gone, vanished without a trace just hours before I was supposed to walk down the aisle. The wedding invitations had promised a celebration of new beginnings, but as police officers filled my living room and my fiancée paced the kitchen floor, I realized that my past and future were colliding in the most devastating way possible. What should have been the happiest weekend of my life had become every mother's worst nightmare. If you're already feeling the weight of this story, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share these powerful real-life journeys that remind us of the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable challenges. My name is Claire Bennett, and for 10 years, it had been just Tyler and me against the world. His father, Michael, had walked out when Tyler was 4, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and a little boy who couldn't understand why Daddy wasn't coming home. I'd picked up the pieces as best I could, working 2 jobs to keep us afloat while trying to be both mother and father to a child who asked fewer questions about his dad with each passing year. We developed our own little rituals and inside jokes. Saturday mornings were for pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, a tradition that started when Tyler was 5 and obsessed with T-Rex, and somehow continued even as he entered his teenage years. Sunday afternoons were for hiking in the state park near our small apartment, where Tyler would collect interesting rocks and I would pretend to be fascinated by each one. We weren't perfect, but we were a team. Dating wasn't even on my radar until Tyler turned 12. By then, I'd built a modest but successful career as a graphic designer, working primarily from home so I could be there when Tyler returned from school. My sister, Jen, had been gently nudging me to get back out there for years, but I always brushed her off. Tyler needs stability, I'd tell her. Not a parade of men coming through his life. Tyler needs to see his mom happy, she'd counter. And you deserve more than just being Tyler's mom for the rest of your life. I resisted until a website client insisted on meeting in person to discuss his project, a cookbook featuring his grandmother's recipes. James Harrington was tall, with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that immediately put me at ease. Our business meeting stretched into lunch, which led to conversations about everything from classic films to our shared love of hiking. When he asked if I'd like to grab dinner sometime, I surprised myself by saying yes. I was cautious about introducing James to Tyler, waiting until we'd been dating for 3 months before suggesting they meet. I prepared Tyler carefully, explaining that James was someone special to me, but emphasizing that nothing would change between us. Is he trying to be my dad? Tyler asked bluntly, looking up from his video game with wary eyes. No, I assured him. He knows you have a dad. He just wants to get to know you because you're important to me. That first meeting was awkward but not disastrous. James brought Tyler a model rocket kit, not as a bribe, he later told me, but because he remembered building them with his own father and thought it might be something they could do together. Tyler was polite but reserved, answering James's questions with minimal words and watching him with careful eyes throughout the evening. Over the next few months, James became a more regular presence in our lives. He joined us for movie nights occasionally, helped Tyler with a science project, and even started attending his baseball games. Slowly, I saw Tyler begin to relax around him, even laughing at James's terrible jokes and engaging him in conversations about space exploration and baseball statistics. When James proposed a year after we began dating, I was surprised but certain. He had proven himself patient, kind, and genuinely interested in being part of our family. He had never tried to replace Tyler's father but had created his own unique relationship with my son. Or so I thought. I told Tyler about the engagement on a Saturday morning during our traditional pancake breakfast. James asked me to marry him, I said, trying to keep my voice casual though my stomach was in knots. And I said yes. Tyler's fork paused halfway to his mouth. You're getting married? Yes. I love him, Tyler. And I think he'll be a wonderful addition to our family." My son was quiet for a long moment, pushing his pancakes around in the pool of syrup. "Does this mean he's going to live here? With us?" "Actually," I said carefully, "we've been talking about looking for a new house. Something bigger, with a yard. Maybe closer to your school." "So we're moving?" Tyler's voice had an edge I couldn't quite interpret. "Not right away. And not far," I assured him. "We'd make sure you could stay at the same school, keep all your friends." Tyler didn't answer, just asked to be excused and disappeared into his room for the rest of the morning. I told myself he just needed time to process, that change was hard for everyone. James was understanding when I called him, assuring me that he expected some adjustment period and was committed to making it work. The wedding plans moved forward. We found a charming venue, a renovated barn with string lights and rustic charm, and set a date for the following spring, giving Tyler plenty of time to adjust to the idea. James and I started house hunting, always bringing Tyler along and genuinely considering his input. He seemed to be warming to the idea, even showing excitement about a house with a finished basement that could be his domain. 6 months before the wedding, Michael, Tyler's father, reappeared. After nearly a decade of sporadic phone calls and missed birthdays, he suddenly wanted to be part of Tyler's life again. He had remarried, had 2 young daughters with his new wife, and claimed to have grown up and realized what was important. I was wary, but I couldn't deny Tyler the chance to know his father. We arranged supervised visits, starting with lunch at a local restaurant. Tyler was quiet on the drive there, fidgeting with his seatbelt. "You okay, buddy?" I asked, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. "What if he doesn't like me?" The vulnerability in his voice broke my heart. "That's not possible," I assured him. "And if for some crazy reason that were true, it would be his loss, not yours." The lunch was awkward but not terrible. Michael had aged, his once dark hair now sprinkled with gray, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He brought photos of Tyler's half-sisters and talked about his job as a sales manager for a pharmaceutical company. Tyler was reserved but polite, answering Michael's questions and even laughing at a few of his jokes. After that, Michael began calling regularly and scheduling visits every other weekend. I noticed subtle changes in Tyler. He seemed more withdrawn, spent more time in his room, and was less enthusiastic about our wedding plans. When I asked if everything was okay, he'd shrug and say he was fine, just tired. James noticed too. "Do you think Michael is saying things to him about us?" he asked one night after Tyler had gone to bed. "I don't know," I admitted. "Tyler doesn't talk much about their visits." "Maybe we should postpone the wedding," James suggested. "Give Tyler more time to adjust to all these changes." The fact that James was willing to put our plans on hold for Tyler's well-being only confirmed that I was marrying the right man. But after careful consideration, we decided to move forward with the wedding. Tyler had assured me he was happy for us when I asked him directly, and I didn't want to model indecision or fear. As the wedding approached, Tyler's mood seemed to improve. He helped with some of the preparations, offering opinions on the music playlist and cake flavors. He even seemed excited about his role as the ring bearer, though he insisted on being called the ring security because ring bearer sounds like a baby thing. The night before the wedding, we had a small rehearsal dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant. Tyler sat between James and me, laughing at the best man's jokes and devouring his weight in garlic bread. Everything seemed perfect. After dinner, we returned to our apartment. James was staying at his place for the night, a nod to tradition that had seemed silly but now felt right. My sister Jen was staying with us, sleeping on the pull-out couch to help me get ready in the morning. "You should get some sleep," I told Tyler as he lounged on the couch, playing a game on his phone. "Big day tomorrow." "I will," he promised. "Just want to finish this level." I kissed the top of his head, breathing in the scent of his shampoo and feeling a wave of love so intense it almost hurt. "I love you, you know that? More than anything." He looked up, his eyes, so like his father's, meeting mine. "I love you too, Mom." Those were the last words my son said to me before he disappeared. I discovered he was missing at 6:30 the next morning. Jen was in the kitchen making coffee when I emerged from my bedroom, already feeling the flutter of wedding day nerves. "Is Tyler up?" I asked, accepting the mug she handed me. "Haven't seen him," Jen replied. "Want me to go wake Sleeping Beauty?" I nodded, sipping my coffee and mentally reviewing the day's timeline. The hairstylist was due at 9, the makeup artist at 10. The ceremony wasn't until 2 p.m., giving us plenty of time. Jen returned a minute later, her face pale. "He's not in his room." "What do you mean?" I set down my mug, already moving toward Tyler's bedroom. "I mean he's not there. The bed looks slept in, but he's gone." Tyler's room was empty, his bed rumpled but abandoned. His phone was on the nightstand, unusual, as it was typically glued to his hand. His backpack was missing, along with some clothes from his dresser. "Maybe he went out for breakfast?" Jen suggested, but her voice lacked conviction. I called James, who arrived within 15 minutes, his face tight with concern. We called Tyler's friends, checked the nearby park where he sometimes went to shoot hoops, even drove to the convenience store where he liked to buy slushies. No one had seen him. By noon, with the wedding just 2 hours away, we called the police. They took the information seriously but explained that teenagers often left home temporarily when upset. They asked about recent changes or stressors in Tyler's life, and I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach as I listed them: my engagement, the upcoming wedding, his father's return. "Have you contacted the boy's father?" the officer asked, and I realized with a jolt that I hadn't. Michael answered on the third ring, his voice groggy with sleep. "Claire? What's wrong? Is Tyler with you?" I demanded, hope and dread warring in my chest. "Tyler? No, why would he be with me?" "He's missing," I said, the words burning my throat. "He disappeared sometime last night." There was a pause, then Michael's voice, suddenly alert, "I'll be right there." The wedding was postponed, a flurry of phone calls from Jen to guests who were already dressing, already driving to the venue. James handled the vendors, his calm efficiency a lifeline as I felt myself drowning in panic. By evening, our apartment had become a command center. Police officers came and went, friends and family brought food no one ate, and James and Michael, two men who had never met before, sat at my kitchen table studying a map of the city, marking places Tyler might have gone. "This isn't like him," I kept saying, to anyone who would listen. "He wouldn't just leave." But as the hours stretched into days, I had to face the possibility that my son had, in fact, chosen to run away. The police found security footage from a bus station 3 miles from our apartment, showing Tyler boarding a northbound bus at 2:17 a.m., a backpack slung over his shoulder. He had gone willingly, deliberately, in the middle of the night. The question that haunted me was, why? 5 days after Tyler's disappearance, as James and I sat at the kitchen table reviewing the latest update from the detective assigned to the case, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Bennett?" a woman's voice asked when I answered. "This is Sandra Wilson. I'm a social worker in Millfield, about 3 hours north of you." My heart stopped. "Do you have my son? Is Tyler okay?" "Tyler is fine," she assured me quickly. "He's here at our youth services center. He came to the police station this morning and identified himself." The relief was so intense I nearly dropped the phone. James was already grabbing his keys, ready to drive us to Millfield immediately. "Can I talk to him?" I asked, desperate to hear my son's voice. "He's asked for some time to collect his thoughts," the social worker said carefully. "But he does want to see you. Can you come to our office?" The 3-hour drive to Millfield was the longest of my life. James drove while I alternated between tearful relief and simmering anger. How could Tyler do this? What was he thinking? And why Millfield, of all places? The Youth Services Center was a low brick building with cheerful posters in the windows. Sandra Wilson met us in the lobby, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Tyler's in our meeting room," she explained, leading us down a hallway. "He's been very cooperative, but he's also quite emotional. I'd like to sit in on your conversation, if that's all right." I nodded, too focused on the imminent reunion with my son to question her request. And then there he was, my beautiful boy, looking smaller somehow in clothes that needed washing, his hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. He stood when we entered, his expression a complicated mix of relief, shame, and something else I couldn't identify. "Mom," he said, his voice cracking, and I crossed the room in 3 steps, pulling him into my arms. "Don't you ever do that again," I whispered fiercely, holding him so tight I could feel his heart beating against mine. "Do you understand me? Never again." He nodded against my shoulder, his body shaking with silent sobs. When I finally released him, James stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Tyler's shoulder. "We've been worried sick, buddy." Tyler looked up at him, then back at me. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't mean to scare everyone. I needed to figure some things out." "In Millfield?" I asked, bewildered. "Tyler, why here?" He glanced at the social worker, who nodded encouragingly. "Because this is where Grandma Jean lived. Before she died." My mother, Jean Bennett, had indeed lived in Millfield before her death when Tyler was just 6. We had visited occasionally, but I couldn't imagine what had drawn Tyler back there now. "I found her letters," Tyler continued, reaching into his backpack and pulling out a bundle tied with faded ribbon. "In that box of stuff in your closet. The one you told me not to touch." I felt the blood drain from my face. The box contained mementos from my mother, including the letters she had written to me in the months before her death, letters that discussed Michael's abandonment and her concerns about how it would affect Tyler. "You read Grandma's letters?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Tyler nodded. "And I found this." He pulled out a small, worn photograph. It showed my mother standing in front of a small cottage, her arm around a man I didn't recognize. On the back, it says, "Jean and David, Millfield Cottage." "Who's David, Mom?" The question hung in the air between us. I glanced at James, whose confusion mirrored my own, then back at my son. "I don't know," I admitted. "I've never seen that photo before." "I think he's my grandfather," Tyler said quietly. "Grandma's letters talk about a David who left before you were born. She says she never told you the truth about him." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. My mother had always told me my father died before I was born, a construction accident when she was 7 months pregnant. I had never questioned the story, never had reason to doubt. "That's why I came here," Tyler continued. "I wanted to find out who he was. Who we are." The pieces began to fall into place: Tyler's withdrawal, his sudden interest in family history, the timing of his disappearance. This wasn't about the wedding or James or even Michael's return. This was about identity, about roots, about the stories we tell ourselves and our children. "Why didn't you just talk to me?" I asked, hurt threading through my confusion. "I tried," Tyler said, frustration evident in his voice. "But you've been so busy with the wedding, and when I asked about Grandma's family, you always changed the subject. And then Dad came back, and everything got so complicated, and I needed to do this on my own." The social worker cleared her throat gently. "Tyler has been very resourceful. He found the local historical society and has been researching property records for the cottage and the photograph." "Did you find anything?" James asked, speaking for the first time since Tyler's revelation. Tyler nodded, a spark of excitement breaking through his.